Welcome to the From Burnout to Recovery show with your host, Dr. Kate. This is where your journey to burnout recovery starts. Are you feeling overwhelmed or like work has become unmanageable? Join me and my guests for open and honest conversations about burnout recovery from the comfort of the front porch. I am here to help you build your resilience and prepare you for burnout in a whole new way through a variety of perspectives. Move past the idea that burnout can only be addressed by avoidance and work to integrate recovery into your daily life. Relax, take a breath. The From Burnout to Recovery show starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the From Burnout to Recovery show with Dr. Kate on Transformation Talk Radio and member of the Cornelius Stephanie Media Group. I am your host, Dr. Kate, and I'm excited to welcome you to the front porch and the show today. Remember, as you are enjoying the show, to hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share it with someone else who needs to hear this message. You can also download the KS Media Group app for the world's best influencers all in one place. Today, we are joined by our guest, Jay Winslow. Jay Winslow is a brandologist and founder of UnforgettableBrands and helps business owners 2 to 5 times their revenue so that they can work less, decrease burnout, and increase impact while building a culture that makes a difference. After learning early in her career that not fitting in is not a curse, but rather an asset to be embraced and expressed, Jay has made it her mission to help business owners get unstuck. Now, with over 30 years of experience working at the intersection of purpose and profit, Jay strategically helps Fortune 100 companies and entrepreneurs alike to connect their mission and vision to their revenue streams so they can become brand leaders in their industry. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, I am excited to have you and learn a little bit more about you. And with that, to get us started, if you would just tell us a little bit more about yourself, your experience with burnout, and your continued burnout recovery journey.
So, that's a big ask because I've been around on the planet for a tiny bit. What I will say is that probably there are people listening like myself who had never even heard of the term burnout until I was so in it that it came as a total surprise to me. So I will just share that my youth was extremely stressful. I didn't know all of the implications, if you will, of my history and how that would rise up and bite me in the tush someday in the future in the form of something called burnout and chronic fatigue. I had no idea. I had no idea that this was affecting my biology, that being in a toxic home, my home life looked fabulous. I grew up in a very nice neighborhood with nice parents, and that they were, going through their own stuff, and it's stuff that they never sorted. And being a rather, which again, I did not know, sensitive soul, I was getting all of this energy imprinted on me, and it was really, really affecting me. I became suicidal when I was quite young. And now I can look back and it makes so much sense. But at that time, it really didn't. I believe that there was sort of this beautiful, not so beautiful cocktail of circumstance that flung me into not only depression, but then many years later into this thing called burnout. And so I don't think at that time, and I'm not even sure now, that we as humans or parents or as those going through anything really are equipped to identify what's occurring for us so that we can either unravel it sooner or whatever there is to be done, which is your area of expertise. So I didn't know any of this stuff and I didn't have the tools. So I was a pretty happy kid until I wasn't. And then I was in a really dark place for a very long time where most of my energy was spent on ways to check out, basically. And my biggest fantasy was to be in a fatal car accident. That was really what my dream was, which was kind of a pitiful thing to say, but true. And it wasn't until I was 28 and I did my first personal development course that I started to get my arms around that I had an option, that I could consciously choose another direction for my life. And so that put me on a path that I'm still on today. I'm very enmeshed in personal development. However, that did not erase or negate or alleviate a lot of the stress that had been ongoing. Plus, as probably people in your audience may relate to, as a sort of overachiever personality, I continued to work absurdly long days. I lived many years in Manhattan, where what you do is kind of who you are and how you play in the world and how you show up, which is full commitment, full dedication, full on, I'm in. And so my primary sort of working years as a young person were really, very stressful because I was so invested, and I still am, in what I do and how it gets done. But one of the lessons I learned is how to design your life and your business so that it serves you as well as serving others. And that was not a philosophy, 30, 40 years ago. The philosophy was work your ass off, hustle, adrenaline. We definitely become addicted. It was definitely in my cells because I come from a family of hard workers, and, the belief that you had to work your bottom off to make something happen, all of the things, right? Which we now know is very masculine energy and is not always in service of our own good, nor is it really encompassing all facets of ourself, right? So I was just really going down that rabbit hole quite deeply and came to a very hard stop when I literally couldn't get out of bed and didn't know why, and just kept thinking it'll be better tomorrow. And 2 years went by thinking that. And now it seems so absurd that I allowed that to occur. But in the moment of it, I really had I didn't know I had an option. And I really did believe tomorrow would be better. And people kept, I didn't tell anyone because I was so frightened that if you knew that I wasn't 100% all the time, that you wouldn't want to work with me. I thought my family would never understand, and they never did. To this day, they don't get it, that they could have had any kind of role in the precursors of how I got here and why it's so critical for me to be very mindful of my stress, my input, the toxicity. Like, that's just not something they could ever really relate to because they come from a time where that was just understood, expected, and you just dealt with it. And if it took you out, took you out. But I don't think they understood any of the underlying stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and, for the vulnerability in that piece. And I think, something that struck me in that was the initial belief or the acknowledgement that you came to that you have other options and different ways that you can live.
Oh my gosh, that was so huge. So once I finally realized like there is something terribly wrong, I happened to literally, I would schedule my life. So if I had a meeting, I could only have one meeting a day. That's all I had the energy for. And then I would go back to bed. And if I had a meeting outside the home, remember when we did those? I would go to the meeting. And again, I would literally, if I could even go to the grocery store, that was like a big deal. And I would come home and just get horizontal. So I had to rest a lot in order to have any energy to function. And I just was kind of making that work because what else could I do? I still needed to eat. I still needed to work. I'm self-employed, blah, 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 all the things. So I just kept making it work. And I happened to say to somebody, she said to me, "How are you?" I went on this lunch appointment with somebody I'd never met. And she said, "How are you?" And I said, "Actually, not really good. Thanks for asking." And for some reason, I shared that I've been in this really yucky space and this would be my only appointment of the day. And that right after this, I'd be going back home and to bed. And she said, "Oh, that happened to me." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Oh, yeah." And she started to unload her story. And it was just sort of this universe, how the universe just sends you angels when you need them. So she was an angel for me. And she alerted me to like, there was an option.
Yeah.
And that's when I made an appointment and I went to a doctor and I started this journey, which I've been on for a disgusting amount of time now. And I've seen all sorts of healers and physicians and Eastern and Western and energy and clearing and all the things. I am open to it all. I love woo-woo. And honestly, most of the traditional means have not worked for me. I have thrown away more things than most people take in a lifetime. I've spent more money than most people do. And most of the traditional approaches have actually made me worse, not better. So I continue to pursue kind of what some might consider very strange means, but they have slowly worked and continue to work. And I continue to up-level what's possible, what's available, and how to approach it.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny that you were talking to, that person at the, the lunch meeting and those kinds of things. And I think I think burnout is this club that we're all in, but we don't realize we're in it until we like have a really like chaotic experience with it. Right. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I'm in this club. And then we realize how many more people are actually in this club with us, which is, I think, fascinating to me as I continue to do this work. And my belief is that we can't avoid burnout, that it is a part of our human experience.
Really?
But we can become more resilient to it and build ourselves so that we can recover faster from it. So we have an experience with burnout, or what I call burn events, and then we're able to very quickly recover from them so it doesn't impact our life in such a heavy way. I would love to hear more from you about some of the strategies that you use now to support yourself in your burnout recovery.
So I am really careful now. So it's very interesting. And it's funny what you just said, because what I found is I'm really sensitive now to when my clients are displaying any form of burnout, because like myself, they're high achievers and they have no awareness. And so when I share with them, what you're sharing with me sounds like they are just completely unaware, which is fascinating to me. And then the other piece is that you said that we all have it. I find it fascinating how many young people are experiencing burnout, because I don't think that was a thing 40 years ago. Maybe it was, and I just had no awareness of it. But I think the fact that not only are younger people, so I mean people at the beginning of their career trajectory, really, because up until that time, there are windows where you can not perform, underperform, check out, take better care of yourself. There's a different makeup to your day-to-day life, right? There's different expectations. But once you start your career journey and that trajectory, and you're all in for that, that really takes something of you, from you, with you, that, again, high achievers just experience differently. And I don't think this happens for everyone. It depends on the kind of stress load that you're under and how you manage it. And then, of course, as I mentioned, your past, I think. But for me now, I know very particular symptoms. Like for me, a headache is my first sign that I'm overdoing it and I need to dial it back, because I don't get headaches anymore. I used to get them all the time, especially when I was a kid. When I was in high school, I got terrible headaches. Never occurred to me that there was something chemical going on. I thought it never occurred that maybe I was allergic to some foods, which now I believe I was. So there's all these elements that we now know that we didn't then. But so now when I get a headache, I'm just like, go lay down, lady. So there's certain things that I know. I walk a lot, and I use that time to have walking meditations, to listen to very affirmative. I'm kind of regimented with how I do all the things. And I have completely redesigned my business as well, which was fascinating, because not only was it a benefit to me, but it was a benefit to my clientele, which is so exciting, because that's, I think, the underlying gift, because I think there's gifts in all that happens with us. So the underlying gift was, it allows me to serve my clients at a deeper, better level, having lived this myself, which is fascinating. And yes, I redesigned my business model to be more effective with less, I don't even know what to call it. it allowed me to dial back how I be with them, but be more powerful through my interactions. I'm not quite sure how to say that, but it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's been a really fascinating journey.
Yeah. Sounds like a little bit of like being able to make the same, if not more of an impact on your clients, but with it putting less effort on yourself or having to expend less energy from yourself.
Part of it is stress related, as I keep saying. So part of it is how I disconnect and detach and sort of clear the energy with any kind of appointment that might be a little bit traumatic for them, which of course we take on the energy of others. Part of it is who I surround myself with on a daily basis. And part of that was actually up-leveling my clientele so that I was working with people that required a different kind of support. And their goals were much bigger and broader. Yeah, it was just a very different level. And then little things like, I feel like it's such an old person saying this, but when they first told me this, I was really challenging. But the whole thing about putting away your technology, going to bed early, all of those things, I am quite rigorous about now. And my dog will come and get me if I'm not in bed at the aforementioned time, because he's gotten so he's so trained to go to bed. So now he's like, okay, lady, it's time to go to bed. And which cracks me up because I'm not always ready. But he is.
I also have a pet. I also have a dog, Amber, and she is very, very much the same. If it like 10 o'clock, she's like, it's bedtime.
What are we doing?
Where she takes medication. So she's like, I need to go outside. I need my medication. What are you doing? Watching another episode of Ted Lasso, like turn it off.
Yeah. Oh, I love Ted Lasso so much. I really resisted watching it, but I loved it. I binged it to death. Yes. And that's part of it is because for instance, our pets are such wonderful reminders, but I have one of the things I have my clients do is I create, and I suggest everyone do this, but I call it your delicious habits. So if you make a list of 15 things that you love doing, and it's not about money. I mean, they're like petting your dog or swinging in your hammock or being with your kids or, watching Ted Lasso, and that is a kind of a way to engage your brain and your chemistry in a different manner. So when you're feeling all the things and you just pick one of those, whether it's go to a movie or go for a walk or go to the beach or whatever, right? Have a cup of tea in the bath. That will completely shift what's going on and alleviate that stranglehold that burnout can have.
Yes, I love that. Delicious habits. The practice I use is called the comfort list. It's very similar in those same practices and making the list of that and having it ready to go before you get into a stress response or into the feeling as though you're in crisis. So you can just pick from your list and implement right away. Right.
And we all need that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We need that to create. We need that to let go. We need that to be open to healing. So a lot of it is really about, it's energy related. So rather than, when we get nervous, when we get scared, when we get sick, we literally come in on ourselves energetically and we block the flow. So how do we increase the flow, increase the relaxation, allow all of our synapses and all the things, I don't know the technical terms, to open up so that we're drinking in the positive, cellular stuff. What is that called? I'm sure there's a technical term.
But allowing the synapses to fire in the brain and open up your, the thought and those kind of things. Because when we are in a stress response, we do get into that fight or flight piece. And so the majority of our brain is shut off with the exception of what's, right back here. That's just like helping us breathe.
So if you think about how much of your life you spend actually in fight, flight, or freeze is a really big one. And a lot of what would happen for me was family of origin related and still is. So I'm not good at fighting. I'm not good at confrontation. I totally go into freeze. Literally, my voice will go away. It's wild. It's like I'm 2 years old. So all of those sort of symptoms and awarenesses really help me understand what my triggers are and just step away, which is really unfortunate because I've lost some family as a result of that.
Oh, that's hard.
But, I had to choose me.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard, necessary, and to choose yourself.
Yeah. It's one of the things I got really into Abraham and Hicks a number of years ago. And one of the things that they say, which is so valuable, is, if I have to choose your discomfort or my discomfort, I choose you.
Yeah.
I am going to maintain my inner calm, my stability, and my groundedness. And if that is a problem for you, it's just too bad.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. As we kind of wind down this show, Jay, what is one piece of advice that you would like to leave our audience members with?
Well, what I share with my business owners, as well as I believe this applies to us all, is that we really, truly can live our life by design. And I encourage everyone to take that on. We consciously and creatively do that as business owners. We're expected to. We would never think that we are not. But that is something that applies to everyone on the planet. As humans, we have this wonderful, beautiful opportunity to create a life that we choose, that we design, that we respond to in every moment of every day. And when you take that sort of new perspective that that's where we're coming from, rather than feeling any sort of, I don't know if victim is the right word, but any pushback that we're responding to them and it and that, instead of coming from a place of how would I like to design my life, and just take tiny steps into that vision, something very new and exciting will open up.
I love that. Identifying that vision and then taking those tiny steps toward it. So that you can really open up to your new world.
Right. And start dreaming. It may not even start with identifying, just start dreaming and imagining and playing with it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jay, for being on the show today. Where can our listeners find out more about you?
Well, I am all over social media as Judy Winslow. I'm on Insta as JWins CEO Pro, and my business website is unforgettableBrands.com.
Awesome. And you can also find that available to you in the show notes. Thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
What an amazing conversation with Jay and her experience in chatting a little bit more about stress responses and that piece. If you are enjoying this conversation and you haven't yet, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and be sure to share this with someone who also needs to hear this message. Dear listeners, we're going to move into our recovery moment at this point. And remember that I want you to be safe when you practice this. So if you plan to close your eyes, just make sure that you have a safe surroundings around you, and we will get started. Today, we are going to focus on giving kindness to our minds and our thoughts. So let's just start with one big deep breath together, in through our nose and out. Let's do one more together, in through our nose and out. You may notice that your response to the mind and its thoughts is not always rooted in kindness and gentleness. Traditionally, loving kindness is practiced towards a person, even if that person is yourself. But you can direct the same sentiment towards the mind itself. With practice, you can learn to respond to the mind with greater acceptance. This helps you see more clearly and not get caught up in reacting to each and every thought. Go ahead and sit in a way that feels healthy and conducive to mindfulness. Listen to your body and make any adjustments to find a comfortable position. Let's begin by bringing attention to our body and our breath. Gently tune into your mind and ask for focus. Open your thoughts keeping your awareness on the breath as you anchor. Simply notice when a thought arises. You may label it or note its contents, but focus on responding to it with gentleness. Whether the thought is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, try to bring some practice to the thinking mind. When a thought arises, offer a phrase of loving kindness toward the mind and the thought. May I be at ease with the mind. May I be at ease with this thought. Thinking mind, gentle mind. May I approach my mind with kindness. May I approach my thoughts with gentleness. Kindness mind, gentle mind. Reconnect with the intention to respond to your thoughts with kindness over and over again. Continuing these phrases, may I be at ease with the mind. May I be at ease with this thought. Thinking mind, gentle mind. May I offer kindness to my thoughts. May I offer kindness to my mind. When the mind wanders off, just come back to the breath and pay attention when a thought comes up. Gently offering the phrase of loving kindness and return to your desire to be at ease with the mind. You may even try offering a phrase to the wandering itself. May I wander with kindness. May I be at ease with a wandering mind. As we complete this practice, make a commitment to try and carry it with you throughout your day. You can pause and offer the mind and thoughts a few phrases of loving kindness when you're waiting in line, walking to your car, or checking the mail. Before we leave today, let's try those phrases one more time. May I be at ease with the mind. May I be at ease with this thought. Thinking mind, gentle mind. May I offer kindness to my mind. May I offer kindness to this thought. Take one more deep breath with me. In through your nose and out. And when you're ready, bring awareness to your body and the space and the things around you. And be ready to approach the rest of your day with kindness for your mind and kindness for your thoughts. Remember, for more recovery moments, you can follow me at Dr. Kate Steiner on Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to the From Burnout to Recovery show on YouTube. I'm so grateful to our guest, Jay Winslow, for joining us today, and I'm grateful for each of you for listening. Thank you for joining us on the From Burnout to Recovery show with Dr. Kate on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Kate, and I wish you peace on your journey. Thank you for joining me on the front porch today. And remember that you can download your free Burnout to Recovery Reflection Journal on my website, drkatesteiner.com. And be well, my friends. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Kate, on the From Burnout to Recovery show, where you are starting your journey to burnout recovery. You are invited to join me on the front porch every second and fourth Friday of the month on transformationtalkradio.com to continue growing in resilience and integrating recovery into your daily life. If you would like to learn more or find out how to work with me, visit liftwellnessconsulting.com.